Hi, you guys. I thought I would try to tell a story and using this format, which I use nearly every day with my clients, and when I'm drafting plans, going back and forth, and this talking into the microphone while I'm looking at the same screen that you're going to be looking at is a really kind of fun and interesting and effective way to communicate and get across what I'm trying to get across to the people. I've actually drawn plans, whole houses many times, and never met the person face to face. It was all using this format. But I want to tell a story to you guys, and mainly reminisce with my dad, who recently gave me the elk head, the trophy elk head that he got back in 1978. And I'm showing you this because if you think about it, every time you see a mount, there's always an exciting story behind it. And recently we were at this fall we were having dinner at a restaurant, and Dad had mentioned that he was going to have to get rid of his elk head mount that he had since 1978, and he didn't know what to do with it. And I said, Dad, give it to me. I have the perfect spot for it. And so he said, yeah, sure, you can have it. And this was my perfect spot. This is our stairwell going up. This is our living room down here. And well, there's a story. Not only is there a story behind every mount you see, sometimes there's a story involving mounting the mount. This one, Eli was supposed to take off to go to back to Memphis, or not Memphis, but Mississippi, after he had spent Christmas with us, and I kind of got myself up to where I was going to have it ready to mount the morning he was going to leave. Just, it worked out that way. I had so many things going on. And you can see this original spot. Well, that was the base. See, there is actually a new one that I had to remount it. But I had it all prepped. I had the hole. And I just kind of left the hole here without patching it up. Now I got to patch it up because anyway, we didn't have much time before he was going to hit the airport. But I had it timed perfectly, and we put it up. And so, this is probably 8 feet, if not 9 feet from the ground. This right here. So this would have been down here. It was going to be covered up by the body of the thing. But we got it up. And I've not mounted many heads, let alone in stairwells. And while the basement was way above your head, by the time this thing stuck out so far, you could kiss it as you were walking down the stairs. So that wouldn't work. So, but I thought, oh, bummer, my help is gone, because Eli's the one that was going to have to put it up. I was just kind of going to support him, and so I said, well, shoot, I have time. And I quickly went and redid the whole thing. And I mean, we didn't have more than, 10 minutes after Eli finally got this thing up back. What I did is I had to cut the hole in again, stick the back, and the nail is up at the top here. And I redid the whole thing. And now I'm patching this. This is a week later or so. But anyway, we got it all up. You look at it, I mean, I moved it up within about 2 inches of the top, and on each side there's about 2 inches. I mean, it just barely fit there. And then you had to figure out exactly where to put it. It wasn't an easy mount. But as good as that story is, there's a way better story behind this mount. This is a YouTube video that I found. Just quickly Googled elk and found this really cool video some guy must have been just sitting there as these elk came up, and they never did know he was there. It's pretty incredible. But I was going to show you this while I was giving you a little bit of background about me and Dad hunting. So anyway, I'll start this. And I remember the first time that I went hunting with my dad. I was 6, almost 7. It was that fall, and it was still dark in the early morning. I gotta stop this because it's too distracting. Well, here, let me move it ahead just a little bit. But it was still dark, and I was in bed. I was in the lower bunk bed on Alki. Chris was in the upper bunk bed. And I remember Dad first asked Chris if he wanted to go hunting with him that day, and Chris said no, which is probably wise or smarter than me, because on Sunday we typically had to work. Even though we were really young, Dad had chores for us on a Sunday, and I mean, it's not a Sunday, a Saturday. And so if Dad's gone, that means you get to watch cartoons, which normally I had to spend the night at someone's house in order to watch cartoons. If we stayed at home and Dad was home, he had chores for us. But anyway, Chris chose not to go hunting, and I chose to go hunting. And they say that children find niches in their family, and definitely my niche in our family was hunting. And that, I remember that hunt. I mean, we didn't get anything, but I remember, as so many times, following behind Dad. I'm just this little guy, we went up on Micah Peak, and I remember it seems like it was a little bit snowy, but it's 7 years old, and I hunted all the way to this. The story I'm going to tell you is in 1978, and I hunted 2 more years. So that would be about, I don't know, I guess about 16 years. Basically, all of my youth. I hunted with Dad from 6 years old to, I believe it was 22 years old, 2 years after the story I'm about to tell you. I stopped hunting. It hurt my heart to kill such beautiful creatures, but still I was raised, and I totally understand and the thrill of the hunt. And all the memories, the wonderful memories that I had. I could tell you so much about hunts and trips and the one thing, that so many of my friends and my family have benefited from me spending so much time up in the woods with my dad, is I became an avid backpacker from starting in my junior year in high school. And by the time I was a junior in high school, I'd already spent countless hours in the woods, and I became a very avid outdoorsman, and introduced all of my family and like I said, dozens of my friends, who then introduced dozens of their friends to backpacking. And of course, through backpacking, the love of the outdoors, which is just a basic blessing, huge blessing that God has bestowed on the human being, if they're lucky enough to be able to enjoy it and have the experience of being in the outdoors enrich their life like few other things can. It's a God-given gift to man that we were able to take in so many ways, just standing by the ocean or watching a beautiful sunset. There's so many ways to enjoy nature, but backpacking is one of the greatest. And I would argue that hunting is also a way to enjoy God's gift of nature and wildlife. But of course, it's the taking of the life, but of the animal. But I learned so much and saw so much. And for example, this beautiful creature, which I consider the greatest of the North American beasts, the most royal of them all, the elk. I have actually been out there and heard this many times. This here, the bugle. No other creature does this. I've actually bugled in. I didn't get to shoot them. They didn't get that close. But, at hunting, I experienced the bugle. The hair, the back of my neck rose up as I heard that. You see, this beautiful, beautiful creature is something that I only came to know through hunting with Dad. Dad started out hunting deer, as a young man. I remember on Alki, he would actually, when he would kill something, a deer, it was always deer, white-tailed deer, he would actually hang it from the rafters of the carport there at Alki, the carport that eventually became the family room. But he'd hang it upside down, and all the blood would drain out. That's supposed to be what you do. And for a few days there on Alki, you had cars passing by, and there's this deer hanging there dripping, and that's one of my earliest childhood memories. And then from there we went and hunted up on the reservation where he got into mule deer, which is kind of a bigger trophy animal. And then from then we went to hunting deer in Idaho, where we ran into down on the Zaza, where there was huge trophy mule deer down there, and from there then we went into elk hunting, and that kind of began an era. First we went over to Montana on a guided hunt over in Seeley Lake, and the day before we got there, they had a huge snow up in the mountains, and it drove all the elk down, and so we couldn't go up into this. We stayed one night at the base camp, this walled tent, but the spike camp way up in the mountains was completely snowed out. So basically our hunt was kind of ruined. But the very next year we went into an area where when you drive along I-90, you come into a town called Superior, and we would get off the freeway there, and there was a road that ran along the freeway until you got to Riverbend. And Dad will remember this. Dad, and I'm positive Dad has never seen this in Google Earth, and I never until I was doing this tour, and I thought I was just my mind was boggled. But Dad, you'll remember the sawmill was right here. This was the sawmill. We would drive up this long road. It's called Trout Creek. I never knew the name of the creek. You drive way up here till you got up this road till you got to the Hoodoo Pass. Remember that, Dad? And we would continue down this road and go way down into here to. You'd drive down this road, down here, and then up this road, and let's see, where's that at? Yeah, remember this, Dad? We drove up this creek here, and then we came to the end of the road right there. That's where we would park. And this trip, the story behind the mount. We parked here. Many times we took horses. Actually, this time we did not. I guess the road keeps going up here for a ways, but somewhere in here it stops. And we had to, it keeps going here for a ways, but it stops. And we had to continue up Goose Creek on backpack, and we had backpacks on, and we had a motorcycle. And just one motorcycle, and Dad was, I didn't ride it. Dad was a good rider, and so he rode up this trail, way up this trail, up Goose Creek, to up this trail, I don't know, probably 4 miles, 2 miles, I don't know, 3 miles. But remember this, Dad? Here's Steep Creek coming down here, and here's Goose Creek here, and right in here was this really steep. We had to stop them. He put the motorcycle next to the creek here because it was such a steep thing right to here, and then we came up to here, and we made a base camp right around here. I don't know, it might have been right there. I'm not sure, but we hiked in there. With another guy, and his last name was Maines. I'm showing you the whole area. See, here's the Montana-Idaho border. Remember I told you that you went over Hoodoo Pass and dropped down into here, and then we actually came back up to the Idaho border. But we're camping with this guy that Dad had met, and well, actually, we'd been hunting in this. I might have missed something there, but we'd been hunting in this area. I think I started to say that we found this area the year after we went to Seavey Lake, and we hunted a couple other years. And it was wonderful. I could tell you many stories about right over in. Well, actually, I believe it was right there. I was with Dad the first year we went in, and he shot a spike bull. I remember it was in a wallow, and Dad was a good shot with his 70mm, and it was a long shot, and. I remember the spike was with 2 cows, and Dad, I believe that's right there. See, here's Dad, this is Goose Meadows. That's Goose Meadows right there. And right here is where the wallows was at. And then as you go this way, Dad, this right here, Dad, is, we called it, I think we called it Big Buck Valley or something, where we got I think we got 2 bulls or 2 deer that day, but we were right here, Dad. That's right where we were at. This I have a whole story about the night that I spent right on this rocky shelf looking over at this. I spent the night on in a sleeping bag on these rocks, thinking that if I was there first thing in the morning, I'd be able to look across. It looked like the best place to see deer. And in the middle of the night, these rat packs, not rat packs, but pack rats, started crawling all around me, and I had these nightmares of rats all night long, and they were real. I mean, when I woke up, I'd see these rats pulling me off. I was on this rock, and I was kind of slowly going off it, and I had dreams of these rats grabbing on my sleeping bag and pulling me off. But that was right. Now let's see, Dad. I believe it was literally that right there. I believe. But anyway, when I could tell so many stories. You know, this being where Dad shot the elk here, and this, Dad, is. I believe we were right. Yeah, we were right here, Dad, when we shot that spike. The spike was over here. That one time, not the last one we got at the end of the season, at like the last light, and we shot that spike here. This, Dad, is the drainage we went down, right here. That's the drainage right there. This is Big Buck Valley here. I shot another nice, beautiful elk in its bed, or beautiful deer in buck in its bed right there. And Dad, I remember hiking down through this right here. It was pitch dark, and I was really a good guy, good outdoorsman. I was brought up in it. I had a natural sense, and I remember, Dad, you were following me right about in here, and I was ahead of you, and I had to stop and wait, and you came up and you were like soaking wet, and you'd fallen in the creek and struggled to get out. And Dad, that was right in here somewhere, and it's really hard to see, but it was very hard. I don't know why we didn't follow this down, but to get down to this road, it was so steep, and and you were soaked from falling in the creek, and I remember we finally busted down over the edge, and I had my truck, and we slept in the canopy of my truck that night. We both had, the elk on our back. That's what made it so hard in the dark, as we're going down this creek in the dark and then dropping off the edge to get down the road. And but we, of course, we made it. We got my truck and slept in the canopy, and turned around the next morning, lit a fire, ate some breakfast, and we hiked all the way back up this creek, all the way up to where the elk was at, and loaded our packs back up, and did it and hiked back down. That was on Sunday that we got out of there. But anyway, back to the story of the mounds. We took in this city slicker, kind of, named Manus. Dad. It was just Dad and I, and we got our camp in by backpack, and I mean not by on our backs, with the Dad riding the motorcycle as far as he could get it to here. But the funny thing is that we had planned to spend a whole week. It was just wonderful. We're gonna spend the whole week hunting these mountains, and I had actually spent I believe it was the summer before, I'd spent 2 weeks. This is called Steep Lakes, right here. Me and a friend of mine, Jim Baugh, camped right there for 2 weeks, and we just hiked these mountains all around. So I really knew this whole area. From here, I backpacked or just hiked during the day all through these ridges and valleys, and I knew this area like the back of my hand. And we were so excited to go hunting for days. And then, but what happened was it poured down rain for the whole week, basically. And the city slicker, his name was Manus. He was like a realtor or something. But anyway, he bailed on us after like maybe 4 days. I remember Dad said, "You just don't do that to your partners." But this guy, he vamoosed and left us, just Dad and I, of course. And Cindy had scheduled it, I guess, to come up and spend the weekend up there with us, and so this is where we've been, just Dad and I did go out a little bit, but it was just pouring down rain. It was terrible weather, and so basically you're kind of bivouacked in this little camp and had to spend most of your time in the tent. And then as Cindy got up there, the weather broke, and what we found out, we didn't know this, but what happens, especially at that time of year, the elk were over in here, and we knew that this is Montana. This bowl right here is way back up in nowhere, but there are elk all over in this area. And the storm, they hunkered down in the storm, and so when the storm let up, the first morning, Dad, I don't remember exactly what I did, but Dad, he went hiking up onto this ridge right here. See, there's a bowl right here. Okay, and Dad was about right here, and he sees this beautiful crisp morning, it's just beautiful sky, and he sees a bull elk walk right across there, right there. The bull elk walked across, and Dad, like I said, he's a good shot. He's sitting right over here, and I'm not with him. I'm hiking somewhere, and I said, boom, 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 and I just knew Dad was shooting an elk, or at least he had a shot at an elk, and sure enough, I find him, and of course, back then we had no communication, no walkie-talkies or nothing. But he's over here, heading over here I forget quite all the details. I mean, this was like 50 some years ago. Well, to be exact, this is the tag. Well, it only cost $100. It was an out-of-state and non-resident elk tag, but it was exactly the 29th of September. And there he is. That's Dad. I don't know that this exactly. I think this was after a day of hiking out. You can see he looks tired, and Cindy is she's tired. And over here is some horns, but that's not Dad's mount. There's a little more to the story. This is Dad up there with the mount. In order to preserve a head, you had to, you had to skin the neck, and then cut off the head right there. And this is Dad heading out with the head. We had to pack all the meat out on our backs. Well, Dad in this picture, he's standing right here, and as you look across, that's this. You can see this ridge over here. But we had to hike from here, and it's not easy going. We had to hike down over this little ridge, and then down to our camp here, and then down to here, where then Dad would then put the meat on his back and ride his motorcycle all the way down to about somewhere in here. But it was a long ways. It was a lot of work, and that's why Cindy looks dead tired, and Dad looks tired, because we are tired. Then this picture, Dad, it's funny. It's so hard to remember all these exactly what went on. Of course, I don't remember, but it's interesting here. See, this picture is taken down at base camp, because you can see the tent behind you here, and I'm sure you posed for this. But the interesting thing is the rifle. I'm sure you put the rifle up there for perspective, but that's my rifle, or that's the rifle that Granny gave me. That was my Grandpa Smith's rifle. That's the pump action 30-06. And it's kind of interesting that you did not use your rifle, but this was back at base camp then. And so this is like the day after the storm broke, and Cindy had arrived, I think, that day or the day before. She must have arrived the day after you shot it, because I know she wasn't there that first day. But then, so that's the first day, and then Cindy arrives the next day. And I can't remember, Cindy, you must have been with me, or you might have been with Dad. But so I go back up the next day to the exact same spot that Dad was sitting at. And I cannot remember. I know Dad was not with me, and I don't remember if you were with me. But the amazing thing is another elk. See, the storm kicked them up. It moved them. It moved them from over here where they were in Montana. When the weather broke, after being hunkered down for a week, they began to move and migrate. And they migrated out of Montana and down into this bowl. And I sat there the very next day, and a 4-point came across. I don't know exact same, but just it was in the same path. It probably was on the exact same trail. And with that same rifle you just saw, I began to blast away at this guy. And I guess maybe you were with me. I know that I had to go bird dog that thing. In other words, I had hit it, and it went down in the woods here. And I remember you stayed over here with Cindy, and I went down and up, and when I say bird dog, it had laid down because I had wounded it, and we didn't know if it was going to be dead or not, but it was not dead. And as I got up there, it popped back up, and it was like when I raised my rifle and looked to the scope, it was all I could see is fur, and so I began shooting, and not being a good shot, but I did finally kill it. And then that's what this is here. That's Cindy, who, I don't know what she was, 21, had just turned 21, like 3 days prior, and I would be turning 20 in another 8 days. So I was 19, and Cindy was just 21. But this is my 4 point. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whereas Dad's was a 6 point. But so anyway, I think that's the story. Whether or not I'm sure it's way too long, but listen to it like a podcast or whatever. I don't know. I thought you might enjoy it. I know Dad, I know you will enjoy it. Okay. So anyway, thank you. Bye now.